He had only been away on a short mission, just a few weeks at most, but when Ethan Carter returned home, something about the girl he had once adopted felt different. She no longer clung to him with childish excuses, no longer faked a fever just to stay close by his side. She no longer called him husband, in her teasing way, something that used to make him chuckle and shake his head. Instead, she now addressed him calmly and politely as uncle, a title she had always refused to use before. Gone were the flashy, figure-hugging outfits she once wore while parading around the house, trying to catch his attention. Now, she dressed in an old, faded school uniform, buttoned up tightly, her hair neatly tied back. Ethan assumed it was simply because she had turned 18. He thought, perhaps, she had finally grown up. But what he did not know was that I had been reborn. In my previous life, I had managed to marry Ethan Carter. I spent 50 years by his side, cooking, cleaning, waiting patiently through each of his deployments. I gave him everything I had, all my love and loyalty. When he passed away, I found a photograph tucked away in his personal belongings. In the photo, he stood beside another woman, Olivia Jennings. She was smiling, gentle and glowing, a quiet joy on her face. On the back of that photo, he had written, "The love of my life for 50 years. My heart broke. All those decades, I thought I had been the one he truly loved, but in the end, it was her. In this life, I would no longer chase after the impossible dream of becoming the woman he wanted me to be. No more Harvard, no more sacrifices for his approval. Instead, I chose to follow in the footsteps of my parents, who had died serving as military doctors. I applied to the first military medical university. I wanted to become a doctor with purpose, a doctor without borders. This time, I would live for myself." The day I received my acceptance letter, Ethan had just returned from another military mission. As I walked into the house, holding the thick envelope tightly behind my back, I caught sight of Ethan and Olivia in the main hall, chatting while arranging several boxes. I paused, not wanting to interrupt. Olivia's syrupy voice echoed through the room. "This silk fabric is for Aunt Helen," she said sweetly. She mentioned she wanted something light and warm for the fall, so I asked a tailor to make something special. "And these old opera records, I had a colleague help me find them. Did you not say Grandpa enjoys traditional performances? These should keep him entertained." She smiled and pulled out a blue plaid tie. With a playful gesture, she reached up as if to place it around Ethan's neck. "I bought this for you when we were at the mall last time. I thought it would look good on you. Let's save it for our wedding day." My mind went blank. So, it was true, they were really getting married. Perhaps this was how things were meant to be. Without my childish insistence and emotional outbursts, Ethan was finally free to be with the one he had truly loved all along. Olivia noticed me but acted as if she had not. She wrapped her arms gently around Ethan's shoulders and asked with false innocence, "Did you not bring a gift back for Emily? Do you think she will be upset with her future aunt? She has never really liked me." "Has she?" Ethan let out a tired sigh. "She is just a kid. Still immature. Do not take it to heart. She may have grown up in the Carter family, but she is still an outsider. Sooner or later, she will move out." His words landed like stones in my chest. My fingers trembled. My entire body felt numb. My parents had once served under General Carter as military doctors. During a battle, they had given their lives to protect a young journalist who had rushed into the war zone unprepared. With no family left, General Carter had taken me in as his own. I was just 7 years old. Ethan, 17 at the time, used to kneel down and pat my head, telling me this house was my home and that I should treat him like family. But now, I had become an outsider. After Ethan had said everything Olivia wanted to hear, she finally turned to me and pretended to be surprised. "Oh, Emily, you are back," she said, walking over and taking my hand. Her nails pressed just enough into my skin to sting, but not enough to be noticed. "Do not take what Ethan said too seriously," she whispered, her tone soft but mocking. "He still cares about you. It is just that you really crossed the line during our last mission at the base. He was still upset. That's all." In my past life, I had begged Ethan to take me with him on a mission. He had promised me. But when the time came, he brought Olivia instead. I had been heartbroken. When I confessed my feelings to him in desperation, hoping he would understand, he turned cold. He looked me straight in the eyes, pointed at me, and scolded me for being shameless. From that moment on, he withdrew all the affection he had once shown. He stopped indulging my requests and started treating me like nothing more than a burden. Before they left, Olivia had even turned to me and said, "Emily, why do you look so upset? Ethan and I are going on official business. I know you don't like me, but you should focus on the bigger picture. Not everything is about you." Ethan had added coldly, "Olivia is a military journalist. Her role is to document the mission. If I do not bring her, who should I bring? You need to grow up and stop letting your emotions interfere with our work." When they came back from that mission, they announced their relationship openly. That was the moment I gave up completely. Ethan made a point of showing his affection for Olivia right in front of me. But this time, I did not run off to my room in tears. I did not cry until my eyes were swollen. I did not throw a fit or beg him not to marry her. Instead, I smiled calmly and asked, "So, the two of you are getting married?" Ethan narrowed his eyes and replied coldly, "What if we are? I am warning you, do not try to cause trouble. Olivia is going to be your aunt from now on. She will be the future lady of the Carter family. You had better understand your place. If not, I will not hesitate to send you to live with Grandpa in the capital." Before he could finish, I cut in softly, "Congratulations, Uncle." Ethan froze. I had never called him that before, not once. But now, I said it without hesitation. For a brief moment, his expression faltered, as if something inside him had shifted. Olivia sensed the change immediately. A flash of displeasure flickered across her carefully composed face, but she quickly adjusted her expression and stepped forward with a warm smile. "Emily, I brought you something," Olivia said. Her tone light and cheerful. "Ethan and I have been getting the house ready for our new life together, so we are clearing out a lot of things. I thought I would bring you a gift, as your future sister-in-law." She placed a large box in front of me. When I opened it, I found it filled with old clothes. It was nothing new. Olivia had always done this. Any clothes, shoes, or accessories she no longer wanted, she would pass down to me like hand-me-downs. In the past, Ethan had at least tried to buy me a few new things. He used to dress me like a little princess. But now, I was not even worth that. I was only good enough for their leftovers. Olivia beamed as if she had done me a great kindness. "I treat you like family," she said sweetly. "There is no need to spend money on new things when these are still in good condition." She picked up a beige trench coat from the box. "I wore this during an interview trip to the mountains. The style is a little out of date, and there is a small tear near the hem, but if you stitch it up, it will look just fine." She then pulled out a navy blue skirt. This was tailor-made, one of a kind. It does have a small stain, but that is nothing. "Right, you are just a student, no need to be so picky." Finally, she reached into the box again and took out a half-melted lipstick. She smiled as she placed it on top of the pile. "Ethan mentioned that you like makeup. A friend of mine brought this back from overseas. I have barely used it. You can have it." Ethan glanced at the lipstick, then looked at me with a frown. "That color does not suit you," he said under his breath. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. People often said Ethan and Olivia were a perfect couple. Talented, attractive, and successful, but no matter how many times I heard it, I still could not accept it. There had been a time when I believed that if I wore Olivia's old clothes, if I painted my face with grown-up makeup, maybe Ethan would look at me differently, maybe he would see me as more than just a child. But to him, I had always been a cheap imitation, a copy of the woman he loved. This time, I did not try to prove anything. I smiled naturally and said, "Thank you, Uncle Ethan. Thank you, Olivia. But I am still a student, and these things are not really suitable for me. You should keep them." It was only then that they noticed I was different. I was no longer wearing oversized heels or makeup that looked out of place. Instead, I had on my school uniform, the same one I used to hate for being too plain, too childish. Now, it fit me perfectly. It wrapped me up like a soft armor, protecting what was left of my dignity. Ethan looked at me with a slightly softened gaze. "It is good that you are finally acting your age," he said. I took a steady breath and asked, "Do you need anything else from me, Uncle Ethan, Olivia? If not, I would like to go back to my room and rest." They had nothing more to say. I turned and left quietly, leaving them behind. That evening, Ethan and Olivia went out to order their wedding attire and select their cake. It was late at night when I saw the flicker of headlights outside, the familiar glow of Ethan's old military jeep. I had already eaten alone. Sitting silently in my room, I began packing my things into a suitcase. When I looked up, I saw Ethan standing in the doorway. I did not know how long he had been there. His eyes drifted to the thick envelope sitting on my desk. His expression changed slightly. "Is that your admission letter from Harvard?" he asked quietly. Harvard, a dream he had always spoken of, a goal he had once hoped I would chase, a name he used to say with pride. When he still thought of me as someone worth guiding, he always believed that I should attend the best university, receive the finest education. In my previous life, I did everything I could to meet his expectations. I studied relentlessly, pushing myself to the point of exhaustion. I finally got in. I followed every step he laid out for me, thinking that if I succeeded, maybe I would draw closer to him. But even then, no matter how hard I tried, I never truly won his heart. In this life, I chose a different path, but I did not tell him the truth. Instead, I simply nodded and said softly, "Yes." The acceptance letter arrived yesterday. For the first time in a long while, Ethan smiled. "You should go to the capital and tell Grandpa the good news," he said. "Olivia and I are busy preparing for the wedding, so we won't have time to look after you." I gave him a quiet nod. All right. The military medical university I had been accepted to began its semester earlier than most. I had been wondering how I could leave without him noticing, but now, he was the one sending me away. I no longer needed an excuse. After a pause, Ethan asked, "Do you want me to assign someone to escort you?" I shook my head. "No need, then go to the train station yourself tomorrow," he said. "Olivia and I will be visiting an old commander. One more thing. After the wedding, we are planning to convert your room into a nursery. I'll have a guest room prepared for you downstairs. Make sure you pack up all your things before you leave." The next morning, Ethan had already left the house by the time I woke up. I packed my bags quietly, taking my time. Before closing the suitcase, I looked around the room one last time. In the closet, a few of his old gifts still remained. An old second-hand camera he had carefully picked out from different sellers, and some little souvenirs he had brought back from missions. He had given them to me, thinking they would make me happy. I left them all behind. On the nightstand, there was still a photo of the two of us. I picked it up gently, ran my fingers over the glass, then placed it back in its place. From now on, they would be a happy family of 3. There was no place left for me. I carried my luggage downstairs. At the door, I paused for one last look at the home where I had lived for 10 years. Quietly, in my heart, I said goodbye. Goodbye to the past, goodbye to Ethan Carter. From now on, our paths would never cross again. I had only been at the university for a week when Ethan showed up. I had expected it. It was only a matter of time. After all, Grandpa Carter lived in the capital, while my school was in the Northwest. The student list at the military medical university was shared with the military. With the Carter family's strong connections, there was no way they would not find out. That day, I was walking toward the boiler room with a thermos in hand, hoping to get some hot water. A military jeep pulled up just ahead. Before I could turn away, Ethan stepped out and walked straight toward me. His face was dark with anger. "Who told you to apply to the military medical university?" he demanded. "Did I not tell you to apply to Harvard?" Walking just behind him was Olivia Jennings. She held onto his arm, speaking in a voice that was gentle on the surface but laced with accusation. "Emily, you are being so childish. Ethan and I went through so much trouble to plan a future for you. If you hate us, fine, but how could you gamble with your own future like this?" I looked Ethan straight in the eyes. "I am not gambling with my future," I said calmly. "This is what I want." But he did not care what I wanted. He had never cared. His voice was hard and cold, the same as always, like everything he said was a command. "Where is your dorm? Pack your bags. You are withdrawing from school. You can retake the entrance exam next year." Those words struck something in me. They echoed memories from another life. The long nights, the endless studying under weak lamps, all for the hope of a single word of praise from him. Now, hearing them again, I felt no more sadness, only weariness. Then I saw a security officer walking toward my dorm. My instincts kicked in. I stepped forward to block his way. For the first time in my life, I looked Ethan in the eyes and called him by his full name. "Ethan Carter," I said, my voice firm. "What right do you have to interfere in my life? Are you speaking as an outsider, as an uncle in name only, or as the man I once foolishly loved?" As soon as the words left my mouth, something in the air shifted. The tension that had long lingered between us finally snapped. Ethan's face turned stormy. His rage was barely contained. Then, with a flash of movement, he slapped me across the face. The sharp sound rang in my ears, my skin stung. But strangely, my mind had never felt clearer. That slap. "Consider it repayment for all the years I wasted trying to win your love." He was the one who had raised me. But from that moment on, we owed each other nothing. Ethan seemed to realize what he had done. He looked down at his hand, almost in disbelief, as if he could not quite believe his own actions. For the first time, he lowered his head and said in a quiet voice, "I am sorry, Emily. I was only doing this for your own good. Would it not be better for you to attend the top university?" A faint, bitter smile touched the corners of my lips. "No, it would not," I replied softly, "because I am Emily Carter. I have my own dreams, and I want to walk my own path. I am done living according to your expectations." Ethan's face darkened with frustration. He scoffed, his voice rising with disbelief. "Expectations? Have I not always made your choices for you? What expectations could you possibly have on your own?" And there it was, that was the truth I had lived with all along. Because everything in my life had always been arranged by Ethan. I had once believed he was my whole world. I had followed him blindly, doing everything I could just to stay close to him, hoping that one day he would see me, really see me. Back then, I thought if I kept trying, kept giving, he might one day turn around and choose me. But now, after stepping away from the Carter family, enrolling in the military medical university, and seeing more of the world, I understood. Ethan was just one person in a very large world, and I had so many more choices than just becoming Mrs. Carter. I gave a quiet laugh and looked at him steadily. "So tell me, Ethan, in what role do you think you have the right to interfere in my life?" His jaw tightened, and his face grew hard. I took a deep breath and continued, "I have made my decision. If my parents were still alive, they would have supported me. I have a future of my own, and I will chase it on my own terms. I will build a career, a life that belongs to me, and maybe, if I am lucky, I will find someone who will walk beside me, not ahead of me." My voice softened as I added, "I have grown up, Ethan. I am no longer that little girl who followed you around like a shadow, and I am certainly not your puppet." Just then, a few male students jogged past us, fresh from their morning training. Their faces were bright with youth and energy, their uniforms crisp. One of them waved at me with a cheerful grin. I noticed Ethan's expression shift. It twisted with something hard to define, something like fear or jealousy, perhaps. For the first time, he realized I would not always be standing behind him, that one day I would be holding someone else's hand, that I would belong to someone else. I gave him a faint smile and said gently, "Uncle Ethan, are you not getting married soon? Then let me be the first to wish you and the one you truly love a happy life together." I paused and looked at him with clear eyes. "A wedding takes a lot of planning. You should be focused on that, not on someone like me. Someone who has no blood ties to your family." I paused again, then added, "I heard the wedding is next month. With the university workload, I will not have the time. I will not be attending." Ethan said nothing. His face had turned even darker, as if he had swallowed a storm. But fate, as always, had other plans. Not long after, something unexpected happened at Ethan and Olivia's wedding, and I became caught in the middle of it. I had only been studying at the military medical university for a few weeks when a newspaper article thrust me into a sudden and fierce public scandal. On the front page was a large, grainy black and white photo. In it, an elderly man, around 60 years old, was shown kneeling on the ground, his face contorted with distress, clutching the hand of a young female military doctor. "Me," the headline screamed, "Elderly man suffers medical emergency. Begs military doctor for help. Cold-hearted soldier turns him away," and underneath it, in small bold print, was the reporter's name, Olivia Jennings. But that was not what had really happened. Our university followed a strict closed campus policy. Students were allowed to leave only once a month to buy essential supplies. On that particular day, I had gone to a department store near campus. That was where I came across the elderly man. His wife had suddenly collapsed from a cerebral hemorrhage. I was only a first-year student, barely trained and completely unqualified to handle such a medical emergency. All I could do was run back toward the university to seek help. By a stroke of luck, I ran into one of our professors just outside the campus gates. Thanks to his quick response, we were able to get the elderly woman to the hospital in time. Her life was saved. The man had dropped to his knees, not to beg for help, but to thank me. He had only been down for a couple of seconds before I helped him up, but someone, somewhere, had taken that brief moment and twisted it into a cruel lie. Olivia Jennings had spun the image into a tale of indifference and cruelty, and suddenly I was at the center of a nationwide storm. Emily, we understand your position, my instructor said kindly. We know your character. We know you would never ignore someone in need, but the damage from this article has been serious. We have received many letters demanding that the university take action against you. The university needed an explanation, and they wanted it fast. I took a deep breath as I stared at the headline again, my eyes landing on the name beneath it. Then I spoke calmly. Do not worry, Professor, I said. I will take care of it. The next time I saw Ethan and Olivia was when they came to the capital to meet Grandpa Carter and finalize their wedding arrangements. I walked straight up to Olivia, my steps steady, and without saying a word, I placed the newspaper on the table in front of her. Alongside it, I laid down signed statements from the elderly couple and my professor, statements that completely cleared my name. Olivia's expression faltered. She froze for a split second, but quickly pulled her features into a practiced smile. Oh, Emily, Olivia said sweetly, I am so sorry. I truly did not know you were the person in the photo. One of my co-workers took the picture. I was just following his notes when I wrote the article. I raised my eyebrows and gave her a skeptical look. Even strangers managed to figure out it was me from that blurry photo. I replied, and yet you, someone who knows me personally, want me to believe you had no idea. She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. Is this what your newspaper does now? Prints false stories without confirming the facts? Do journalists just sit in their offices making things up instead of doing any real investigation? Her face flushed with anger. Do you even know my credentials? Olivia snapped. Do you know how respected I am in the journalism world? And you are just a student, not even graduated. How dare you question me? I let out a quiet, cold laugh and stepped closer. I could see a flicker of unease in her eyes. Ethan once told me you were an exceptional woman, I said. He said you were so brilliant that he made me retake my exams just to catch up to you. But now I see you clearly. You are not remarkable. Not only did you smear my name as a soldier, but you also brought shame to your profession as a journalist. She tried to interrupt, but I did not let her. I am not some little girl you can control anymore, I said firmly. Do you even realize what it means to fabricate a story about a soldier? Do you know how serious it is to stir up tension between the military and civilians? Her mouth fell open, but I kept going. If you do not want to find yourself behind bars, you had better issue a retraction and a public apology. Otherwise, be ready for the consequences. Olivia's eyes widened. Her lips trembled as she whispered, the news cycle will move on soon. This is just a minor incident. It will blow over. If I publish a retraction now, it will ruin my career. Just then, Ethan, who had remained silent until now, finally stepped forward. His expression was dark and heavy with disapproval. For a moment, I hoped, just for a moment, that as a fellow soldier, he would stand by me, that he would acknowledge the harm done and support me. But instead, he frowned and said, it was not Olivia's fault. She was misled by her colleague. Why are you making such a fuss over this? Olivia has worked hard to build her career. Are you really going to ruin everything she has achieved because of a misunderstanding? I felt my breath catch in my chest, tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I clenched my fists to keep my voice steady. And what about me, Ethan? I asked. What about my future? I fought so hard to earn my place at the military medical university. This was not just my dream, It was my parents' legacy, and now, because of her carelessness, my name has been dragged through the mud. Does that mean nothing to you? Ethan looked at me for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he spoke again. Maybe it would be better if you just withdrew from the military medical university. If you retake the exams next year, you can apply to Harvard instead. The words had barely left his lips when the sound of a loud slap echoed through the room. Everyone went silent. Even I stood still, surprised by what I had just done. A red imprint quickly formed on Ethan's cheek where my hand had landed. He stared at me in shock, his brows furrowed, unable to process what had just happened. Olivia was the first to react. She rushed forward, her voice high-pitched and shrill. "Emily, what are you doing?" she cried. "I know you are upset about my marriage to Ethan, and now that you finally have something on me, you are eager to crush me. But Ethan is your elder. The Carter family raised you. How could you treat him this way?" I let out a low, mocking laugh. "Do I owe the Carter family?" I asked. "That debt has long been repaid. In my past life, I gave them 50 years of loyalty, and in the end, they still cast me aside." I took a breath and continued, "And do not forget, it was my parents who saved countless lives on the battlefield, including people from your Carter family. General Carter did not take me in out of kindness. He did it out of guilt and gratitude. If anything, it is your family that owes mine." I turned my gaze back to Ethan and said, "Olivia, you are wrong. Maybe, once upon a time, I did love Ethan, but after everything he said, everything he did, what I felt now was not love, it was disgust. The same kind of disgust I felt when I looked at Olivia." Ethan's eyes flickered. For a moment, something in his expression tightened, but I kept my voice steady, calm, and sure. 10 years of love, and 10 years of bitterness, I said quietly. Let us call it even, right here and now. From this day forward, Ethan, you and I, there is nothing left between us. As I turned to leave, Ethan instinctively reached out and grabbed my arm. He looked like he wanted to speak, maybe to explain or to plead, but I pulled my arm away before he could utter a single word. After that, I gathered all the necessary documents and submitted a formal complaint to the university. The newspaper leadership responded swiftly. They retracted Olivia's article and published a week-long front-page apology. Because of the scandal and the damage it caused to public perception of the military, Olivia faced serious consequences. Her press credentials were revoked, and her reputation was ruined. When General Carter learned the full story, he was enraged. He strongly objected to Ethan and Olivia's wedding plans. I later heard that on the day I left the Carter home for good, General Carter had come back from a trip and found out what happened, without saying a word. He took off his belt and beat Ethan until his skin was bruised and bleeding. After that day, any remaining ties between Ethan and me were completely cut. A year passed, and war broke out. Ethan was critically injured in combat. As the fighting intensified along the front lines, students from the military medical university were called to serve in field hospitals. We were not yet trained for complex surgeries, but we could assist with bandaging, wound cleaning, and stabilizing patients. News traveled quickly through the medical tents. I overheard one soldier whisper, "I heard General Carter lost a leg in an explosion. They tried to stop the bleeding, but it was too late." A few classmates who knew my history with the Carter family hesitated, then approached me gently. "Emily," one of them said, "do you want to go check on General Carter?" Without looking up, I continued wrapping a soldier's injured arm. My expression calm and unreadable. "That is the critical care ward. We are not authorized to enter. We would not be of any help there." In my past life, when I heard Ethan had gone to war, I acted without thinking. I was still just a university student, foolish and emotional. I chased after him to the battlefield, desperate to see him. But then, a grenade exploded nearby. The blast was deafening, and for a time, I lost my hearing. Ethan had blamed himself for what happened and, under pressure from General Carter, had been forced to marry me. Olivia, after waiting for him for so many years with no results, finally gave up. She left the country and married a foreign man. Back then, I truly believed that if I stepped aside in this life, if I let go of my selfish feelings, Ethan would end up with the one he truly loved, his white moonlight. But after all the twists and turns, this was the life he ended up with. I saw him again 2 months later. His condition had stabilized, and he had been transferred to a regular hospital room to recover, but his left leg had been amputated. He would never be a soldier again. The loss crushed him. He lashed out at everyone around him. Nurses avoided his room. Even the cleaning staff walked on tiptoes past his door, terrified of being the one to trigger his anger. Nobody dared to leave anything near his bedside. Nobody stayed longer than absolutely necessary. Then, one day, it was my turn. I walked into his room quietly. The moment he saw me, Ethan froze. His face went pale. His lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came out. I did not react. I went about my duties calmly, checking his temperature, changing his bandages, treating the wounds. My hands moved with professional ease, steady and unshaken. When I was done, I turned to leave without saying a word. "Emily," he said suddenly, calling my name. I stopped. Behind my surgical mask, only my eyes were visible. They were cold. I turned and looked at him. He gave a soft, bitter laugh. "You have changed so much." He was right. I had changed. Since entering the military medical university, since choosing to follow the same path as my parents, I had begun to understand who I really was. Day after day, I faced blood, pain, and death. I crawled through rubble, treated broken bodies, and learned to stay calm under fire. I was no longer the girl who once hid behind him, whose world revolved around love and longing. That version of me was gone. I looked at him steadily. "Do you need anything else?" I asked. "I have other patients to care for." His voice was hoarse and low. "Emily, do you still refuse to forgive me?" He was wrong. In the world of adults, forgiveness was no longer the point. I had simply grown up. I had seen too much, learned too much. I understood things now that I never did before, but one thing still puzzled me. In my past life, the war had never been this brutal. Something had changed. Something had gone terribly wrong. The answer came sooner than expected. The military released an official statement, revealing the truth behind this war. Our army had suffered devastating losses. Rumors had been circulating, but the truth hit harder than anyone expected. Someone had leaked classified military intelligence, and among the names on the list of confirmed traitors was Olivia Jennings, along with several of her close colleagues. Suddenly, everything became clear. Olivia had used her position as a journalist to infiltrate the Carter family, to get close to Ethan, and to steal sensitive military secrets. In my previous life, I had always been wary of her. I had kept my distance, watched her carefully, and made it difficult for her to get too close to Ethan. That must have disrupted her plans. And after I returned from the front lines, Ethan, under pressure from his superiors and with no better options, had been forced to marry me, effectively cutting Olivia off from her mission. So she had not left the country because of heartbreak. She had fled to escape exposure. And yet, the most painful part of it all was this: Ethan had spent his entire life grieving for her. He had cherished her memory. He had even written a book in her honor. But he had never realized that the woman he loved most had been the one to betray him completely. When Ethan saw the list of traitors, he was struck dumb. Then, a deep, guttural scream escaped his throat. He tried to sit up in bed, fury blazing in his eyes. Even with only one leg left, he tried to move. He wanted to confront her, to demand the truth, but his body failed him, and he collapsed onto the cold floor, helpless. His voice cracked as he cried out, "That woman. Why would she do this?" Then he looked at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Emily, she got the information from me, didn't she? That's why we lost so many men, that's why they died. Isn't it?" The room turned chaotic. Doctors and nurses rushed in to help him, trying to hold him down as he thrashed against them, screaming uncontrollably. In the end, his voice shaking, he clung to me with trembling hands. "Tell me, Emily, tell me I was not that much of a fool. How could I have been so blind?" But no matter how many tears he shed, no matter how loudly he begged, the past could not be undone. I looked down at him, at the broken man lying before me, and my thoughts went back to the Ethan of my past life, the one who, for 50 years, had mourned the woman he believed to be the love of his life. I remembered the words he had written on the back of our old photograph, "The love of my life." If he had known the truth then, would he still have wasted his whole life grieving a lie? Olivia was arrested. Ethan, for his role in leaking military intelligence, was dishonorably discharged. He became the subject of a formal investigation. His military career was over, and there was nothing left ahead of him. The war lasted another 6 months before it finally ended. My classmates and I returned from the front lines to resume our studies, though the future was still uncertain. The time we had spent at the battlefield, the lives we had saved, and the pain we had endured would forever shape who we had become. On the day we were officially withdrawn from the field hospital, in front of everyone, my boyfriend Ryan Xiao proposed to me. Ryan and I had met at the Military Medical University. We were not just classmates. We were comrades. We shared the same goals, the same belief in the power of healing, and the same unwavering desire to save lives. We had given our youth to this cause, and one day, we would give the rest of our lives to it. There were no roses, no rings, just a few small daisies Ryan had picked from the side of the road. But in a place still covered in dust and rubble, those little flowers meant everything. They were a symbol of hope, of persistence, of beauty in the midst of so much destruction. As Ryan knelt on one knee, his voice was calm and filled with emotion. "Emily, will you marry me?" he said. "I will spend my life making you happy. I will walk this road with you, all the way to the end." Tears filled my eyes, and for a moment, my thoughts drifted to the girl I used to be. The girl who had once chased after Ethan Carter with all her heart. Back then, Ethan had always been just out of reach. No matter how hard I tried, I could only ever see his back, in his eyes. I was always the little girl who clung to him, the housekeeper who cleaned up after him, not someone he could respect or love as an equal. But now, I no longer had to lower myself. I did not need to beg for affection. I did not need to wear someone else's cast-offs or put on makeup just to be noticed. I was no longer the girl trying to become someone else. I had become myself. I threw myself into Ryan's arms, crying. All the years of pain, of heartbreak, of blood and sacrifice. Everything led to this moment, a moment that was simple, but perfect. Cheers erupted around us. The sounds of congratulations filled the halls of the hospital. I was sure Ethan must have heard them too. From his room down the corridor, if he looked out the window, he would see me in Ryan's embrace, holding the man who had always stood by me. That afternoon, I went to change Ethan's bandages one last time. He sat there silently as I worked, not saying a word. I packed up my supplies, ready to leave, but just as I stepped toward the door, I heard his voice. "Congratulations," Ethan said quietly. It was the same word I had once spoken to him and Olivia. So many years ago, Ryan and I decided to get married. Before the ceremony, we made a special trip to the capital to visit Grandpa Carter. My parents were long gone, and though he was only my guardian in name, he was the closest thing I had to family. It felt right to inform him of our plans in person. That evening, after dinner, Grandpa Carter motioned for me to sit with him in the study. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for a small, weathered metal box and gently placed it in front of me. "These belong to your parents," Grandpa Carter said, his voice low and steady. "You were too young back then. I was afraid giving them to you would only bring sorrow, so I held on to them. But now, you are grown. You are about to start a family of your own. It is time you had them." I slowly opened the lid. Inside were photographs of my biological parents, their identification papers, and an old, yellowed newspaper clipping. As I traced the faded words with my fingertips, a strange unease stirred in my chest. Something about the article felt hauntingly familiar. Driven by a sense of urgency I could not explain, I began to investigate further. The more I uncovered, the clearer the truth became. The journalist whose reckless actions had led to my parents' deaths on the battlefield, it was Olivia Jennings. Back then, she had only just graduated, barely an intern at a small newspaper, eager to prove herself. She had ignored all warnings and crossed into a restricted combat zone. She pushed past the safety perimeter, desperate to capture the perfect photo from the front lines. In doing so, she caused a tragic chain of events. Because she was still a student at the time, the military had covered up her involvement. Her record remained spotless. She graduated with honor, her mistake buried and forgotten. From there, she rose through the ranks of the media world, using her pen to shape stories and craft her legacy. No one ever knew the truth that had been buried beneath her success. When I shared my discovery with Grandpa Carter, his face darkened with visible disgust. He clenched his jaw and said quietly, "No wonder I disliked her the moment I met her. There was always something about her that did not sit right with me. Ethan, that boy was a fool to be blinded by her. The military had concluded its investigation. Ethan, although guilty of unintentionally leaking classified information, had his wartime achievements taken into account, his past merits lessened the punishment. He was spared prison, but not disgrace. His military rank, his title, his future, everything was stripped away. For a man like Ethan Carter, it was a punishment worse than death. He shut himself away from the world, barely leaving his room, hiding like a ghost in his own home. On the day of my wedding to Ryan, Ethan finally appeared. He stood in the distance, leaning on a steel cane, watching from afar. Slowly, step by step, he made his way over to me. When he reached me, he held out a small box. Inside was a bracelet. I recognized it immediately. It was his mother's bracelet, the Carter family heirloom. In my past life, even after 50 years of loyalty and care, he had never given it to me. I had always known it was meant for Olivia, and now, of all moments, he was offering it to me. His hair had turned completely gray. His eyes bloodshot. The once handsome face that had captured so much attention had aged beyond his years. Yet as he looked at me, there was a softness in his eyes, a kind of clarity that had never been there before. I gently pushed the bracelet back into his hand. "Mr. Carter," I said softly, "as far as I know, this bracelet is a Carter family heirloom. It is meant for your future daughter-in-law. Today is my wedding day. I am marrying Ryan. It would not be appropriate for you to give this to me." The light in his eyes faded. A bitter, quiet smile crept across his face. He nodded slowly and murmured, "You are right." Before the reception even ended, Ethan left. Not long afterward, I received news of his death. He had taken his own life. In this life, he never became the respected general who spent his old age reminiscing about lost love. Instead, he became a man blinded by pride and lies, a man who betrayed the people who trusted him most. His name, once praised, became a source of shame. He spent his final days drowning in guilt and regret, unable to face the weight of his own mistakes. As for me, I continued on the path I had chosen. With Ryan by my side, I walked forward with purpose. My life was no longer shaped by the ruins of the past. It would be dedicated to something greater, something lasting, not a fleeting love built on illusion, but a life built on truth, choice, and quiet strength. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.